Consumers want to know the facts about the products they buy, but America's agricultural landscape is not easy to navigate. Between different companies, scientific advancement, government regulations, advertisement campaigns, and an unhealthy amount of myth and misconception, anyone would be hard-pressed to make sense of it. That's where Real Ag comes in. Kyle Bauer and the Real Ag crew bring you truthful, unbiased information about real agricultural concerns. From the producers who make your food, to the store where you buy the final product, and everything in between. This is Real Ag. Now, here's your host, Kyle Bauer.
Cheese, yogurt, candy, bread, milk is in a lot of the food that we eat. Today we'll look into why it's such an important part of our diet. Milk is our topic today on Real Ag.
Production of Real Ag is made possible by
the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by farmers.
Why do people consume dairy products?
Milk is an ideal food. It gives calcium, protein, and micronutrients, and other micronutrients, and which are very much needed for the overall health of a human being. The calcium coming from dairy, any dairy product, is more bioavailable than non-dairy source. For example, now you can get fortified, calcium fortified juices, say orange juice. The calcium you are consuming from calcium fortified juices is less than the calcium coming from milk. You can eat any amount of calcium you want, but your body should be able to absorb that calcium. Then that is useful for your bone health.
Before we get into other products, let's talk about the milk itself.
We make 4 types of milk here at K-State. The first milk is skim milk, so we're going to separate the cream from the skim milk. That's how we make skim. We separate cream from the milk, and the byproduct of that would be the skim milk. We're going to pump it into a storage tank to be mixed with some vitamins and some non-fat dry milk powder. From there, that skim milk will be fed through the pasteurizer.
Skim milk, within the milk, liquid milk sales, skim milk sales and chocolate milk sales are probably the steadiest, and the whole milk and 2% milk is on the lower side.
To make 2%, we will mix a 60-40 ratio of whole to skim, and in a bulk milk tank, and we'll send that behind the skim milk after we add our vitamin A and D to it. We'll send that behind the skim milk to be pasteurized. After that, we'll add our whole milk to the pasteurizer. That is just standardized down to about 3.2, 3.3% butter fat. Would be our whole levels on the fat percentages. That'll be, and then we also add a vitamin D to that one. We don't need to add vitamin A because it's got enough fat in it already. So vitamin D will be added to that. The last milk will be our whole chocolate. We'll go ahead and the amount of chocolate that we need to make, we'll put in the 2 mixing tanks, and we'll add sugar and cocoa to those, and mix those thoroughly, and then send them through the pasteurizer at the very end. And that's the 4th milk that we make is our whole chocolate, as well as it being our #1 flavor of milk being consumed at the dorms right now.
There is a market survey. They follow the consumer demand, and based on that, the processors produce milk. For example, chocolate milk is one of the favorite of many consumers. Just based on the consumer demand, we have skim milk all the way up to whole milk, with 1%, 2%, and whole milk.
By law, all milk sold in the United States needs to be pasteurized.
The only reason is safety, food safety issue. If you have some pathogen, it will be very difficult to control in raw milk. That's the reason we pasteurize the milk, in order to get rid of those pathogens and make the milk more safe for the consumers. And the nutritive value during pasteurization, the loss of nutritive value during pasteurization is negligible. There are certain heat-induced changes in milk, but they are negligible.
We'll heat it up to at least 161 degrees and hold it for 15 seconds. That's what legal pasteurization is on an HTST, high temp short time pasteurizer. Ours is a little bit higher and a little bit longer time, but as long as you at least meet those thresholds of 161 for 15 seconds, it's legally pasteurized. We get inspected 4 times a year on how, with that equipment. It's called an equipment check. They time it and they check the temperatures on all the thermometers to verify that we are pasteurizing at the temperature we say we are on the recorder, as well as the time that it stays in the machine, because we need to make sure that it stays in the holding tubes for at least 15 seconds. So we get checked on that. All cheeses that are currently being made in the United States in the commercial industry are being pasteurized. The ice cream mix, before we freeze it, has been pasteurized in a vat pasteurizer.
Milk is usually homogenized. Why is that necessary?
Homogenization for the dairy industry or the fluid milk industry is the beating of fat molecules to suspend them in liquid. It gives you a permanent suspension. In other words, your milk won't separate out like it would back years ago when your parents or grandparents talked about going to the fridge and taking the cream line off the top of their milk. We homogenize all of our fluid milk as well as our ice cream mix here at the dairy plant. We do it about 1500 psi, and it breaks those fat molecules up into an even size and gives you a better mouthfeel.
Milk products are not usually processed at the farm. Instead, they are taken to processing facilities.
We fill out a milk order for how much milk we're going to be using in different processes. Once we get that together, I can put the numbers together for how much milk we're going to need to do all that. We will pick up what milk we need for all that processing in the milk truck. The milk is cooled at the farm. They have bulk tanks that they bring it down to the temperature of 38, 37, 38 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's what it needs to be, under 40 degrees, before we can pick it up. At that point, we pick up the milk, and then we take a sample at the farm. We bring it back, and we'll do an antibiotic test on that sample, as well as a fat test, so we know where we're at with regards to how much fat is in that milk to make our processing. If there's an antibiotic in the milk that we need to be aware of, we're going to have to dump that load. But if there is, we need to get the Kansas Department of Ag involved. As a hauler, we are obligated to test that milk, and if it is positive, let them know. We pump it into the bulk tank. We pump the fluid milk into the bulk tank to be stored or to be processed right away. It depends on the day that we pick it up.
Okay, as soon as the milk leaves the udder, okay, the chemical, microbial, or physical changes takes place in milk. They start spoiling the milk. As a dairy processor or as a dairy farmer, it is your responsibility to minimize those losses and make sure the consumer gets the right quality or a better quality product. Better quality and safe product. That's why we have a lot of food safety regulations. They are both followed both at the farm and plant level. Also, the quality aspects. We take all the precautions to preserve the quality of the milk.
We get inspected 4 times a year for equipment checks from the Kansas Department of Ag. In other words, they'll come in and time our machines and check our thermometers. And every month they come and take a sample from our fluid milk inventory. Questions are always asked about cleanliness. We use chlorine for all of our sanitizer. In other words, before we start any process, we run a sanitizer through the tank, the pump, the barrel, whatever we're going to be making. There's a sanitizer fluid run through it before we start the process. Afterwards, we use a detergent normally chlorine-based as well, to scrub down the machine and clean it as soon as we're done with the process. If it's a high fat content product like butter or ice cream mix, we'll also have to use a caustic to break down that fat and get it off that item or that piece of equipment. And then we'll follow that up with a regular detergent and then a rinse afterwards. So we clean, sanitize, and then we store, and then we sanitize again before we start the process. So that brings us into why we have so much stainless steel around the plant. Well, that's the only type of metal that won't rust and that will stand up to the harsh chemicals that are used to keep our sanitation.
The sale and storage of dairy products presents several challenges for producers and retailers.
When the milk is being produced at a dairy farm, that is picked up by the milk processor. The frequency of milk hauling depends on the amount of milk that is being produced at that particular farm and how far it is away from the processor. Most of the cases, milk doesn't travel more than 2 hours. If you produce a lot of milk, that milk is being picked up every day. If you don't have, if you are an isolated dairy farm and produce very small quantities of milk, it's for the processor to make it more economical. So they pick the milk maybe once in 2 days, something like that. So once the milk picked up from the farm, it's being taken to a dairy processor, which then processes the liquid milk, the raw milk. It pasteurizes and homogenizes and pasteurizes the milk and packs it and send it for retail distribution. And that's where the consumer gets the milk. The taste of milk, the sensory perception of milk depends on how you treat it. It goes back all the way up to what the farmer feeds the milk, okay, and how he treats the milk when it is in the dairy farm. And once it leaves the dairy farm, how the processor processes the milk and how long it takes to process the milk. All these factors influence the final quality of your pasteurized and homogenized milk. If the milk is picked up on the same day of the production and it is processed the next day and it reaches the consumer immediately after processing, probably that milk tastes excellent. But if you keep the milk long enough, you could see the difference in quality of milk. You could taste it. On the other hand, not all the consumers are able to pick up that difference in taste. Some are very picky. They can tell the difference immediately if at all there is any quality degradation, but some they don't. Shelf life of milk is affected by a lot of factors. If you leave the milk under the fluorescent light for long enough, you could see the oxidized flavor development in milk. Fluorescent lights, when you buy the milk from grocery store, they keep your milk under fluorescent light. On an average, it may stay up to 4 to 5 hours. If the milk is not processed or treated correctly, that milk can show the signs of an oxidized flavor development. And most of the consumers can detect that flavor change. So as I said, there are a lot of factors which influences the final quality of or the sensory quality of milk you buy from the grocery store.
Let's talk about cheese.
The basic process of cheese making consists of adding pasteurized milk into a cheese vat. While that milk is being pumped in and is warm, we're not going to cool that milk. We're going to pump it in warm. We're going to add some bacteria to it and let it start to digest some of that lactose in the milk, and we'll let that go on for a little while. After that, we'll add some rennet to that vat. after we get all the milk pumped in. The rennet will coagulate the liquid, set it up like a block of Jell-O where it's nice and soft and flexible, but semi-firm. At that point, we'll take harps and we'll cut what we call cut the curd. What will happen is we'll cut it with harps forward and backwards, and we're making basically cubes, little cubes, and then we'll keep heating it as we do this. And what will happen is those cubes will form into curds or little balls, if you will, and then what's left will turn into whey. So you're going to separate curds and whey, and then what we'll do is we'll put a filter in there, we'll drain off the whey.
When you make cheese, the byproduct is whey. 20 years back, whey was considered as a byproduct, and I mean dairy industry used to dump the whey. But now, whey is one of the most valuable co-product. We have a variety of ingredients that are coming from whey, or extracted from whey, or fractionated from whey, such as whey protein concentrates, whey protein isolates, lactose, etc. They all have their own functional properties and uses in various other products other than dairy products.
And what's left in the bottom of the cheese vat is curd. Depending on what type of cheese you want to make after that, there's some other processes involved. But the gist is that curd will be salted and stirred up and then packed into what we call hoops. Ours are 40-pound hoops, so we'll put 44 pounds in each hoop, and we'll press them overnight. And what you'll have the next morning is a 40-pound block of cheese. We'll vacuum seal that block, put it in a cardboard box so that it doesn't show any light in it, and then we'll age it to depend on what category of cheese we want to put that into. Like mild would be a cheddar that's 3 to 6 months of age. A medium cheddar would be 6 to 12 months of age. A sharp cheddar would be 12 to 18 months of age. And anything over 18 months of age we call extra sharp here at the K-State Dairy Plant. The color of the cheese, whether that's yellow or orange, depending on the way you perceive the cheese, we call it yellow, it's very simple. If you don't put annetto or yellow food coloring into the cheese, it will be a white cheese. But Colby would be a yellow cheese, and cheddar traditionally is a yellow cheese. However, you got New York sharp cheddar, which is always a white cheddar, and we do make that here at K-State, and that's just a cheddar that we don't add annetto to or food coloring. We'll all the other cheddars we make, we always add yellow food coloring to, or orange, depending on which way you look at it.
After the World War II, the cheese consumption is constantly increasing. That's a good sign. And in addition to cheese, we have other ingredients such as the whey protein ingredients. They have a lot of uses in non-dairy products as a protein supplement, or even as an egg replacer. So that is a positive sign for the dairy industry.
Cheese is not just a science, it's an art. We are fortunate enough here at K-State to have Dale Needfelt. He's our cheese maker. He's been making cheese for K-State for over 20 years. The question is asked about what's the difference between the science and the art of it. Well, in my humble opinion, I believe that the artisan is the guy that gets to make the choice on when the next step's going to be made. On any process of any cheese, there's at least a half a dozen to a dozen steps involved in making that cheese. And yes, the titratable acidity is the number that we're shooting for at each step. But there's also a smell and a feel to that product before and after that step, and that's when it's so crucial to be made by the same guy every time, because the cheese is going to taste similar at that point. If you put a different cheesemaker in there, even with the same equipment, and it's just going to be a little bit different, because he's not made that cheese that way 100 times or 1,000 times or 10,000 times before that, like a cheesemaker that has already. Not saying it's not good cheese. I'm just saying that we're lucky enough to have Dale to make our cheese the same way every time.
Ice cream is a very popular dairy product.
Ice cream consists of an ice cream mix, whether that's a white or a chocolate mix. Here at K-State we make both. Out of those two mixes, the white and the chocolate, we can derive all 46 flavors that we have on the books. Let's start with a white mix. The white mix, we'll formulate a mix on an Excel spreadsheet that it has to do with, we're trying to hit certain numbers. Fat percentages, which is butterfat, and then sucrose levels, solids levels, corn levels, which would be corn sugar, and then a stabilizer. We got to put a little bit of stabilizer in it. So the white mix consists of milk, cream, sugar, non-fat dry milk powder, and corn sugar, and a little bit of stabilizer, about 0.5% stabilizer. Okay, that's what consists of the white mix. That white mix will be added into a vat. We'll cook that. We'll heat it up to about 160 degrees here at K-State. Hold it there for 30 minutes. That'll get us the legal pasteurization on a vat. From there, we'll pump it out to a homogenizer. We'll homogenize that liquid. Then we'll send it down to a plate cooler where we'll plate cool that liquid to about 60 degrees. So we'll bring it down from 160 to 60, and we'll put it in a aging tank. We age our ice cream to set it up and let everything kind of thicken all the way. With ice cream mix, there's a lot of sugars and powders mixed in with that, and it needs to set up for about 24 hours is the aging tank. From that aging tank, we'll take out 50 gallons at a time, add it into our flavoring tank / coloring tank. It's a small tank that we can add color to and flavor to. The first mix that we always pump out is a vanilla. It's the #1 flavor in the United States, and it's no different here at Call Hall. We make and sell vanilla 4-to-1 over any other flavor. The vanilla is the first one we start with because it's got the least particulates in it with the least abrasive color. Obviously, we don't even have to add color to it. It's already white. From there, we'll add into the flavoring tank. We'll add some vanilla extract into the flavoring tank. So we'll take the white mix, add vanilla flavoring to it, pump it through our ice cream machine. What we have here at Call Hall is a 1952 Cherry Burrell continuous ice cream freezer. It'll do 100 gallons of frozen ice cream per hour, which is about 50 gallons of liquid mix. And then once you add the air to it, 100 gallons of hard ice cream. That vanilla, like I said, we pump it through. Now, if you want, and it comes out soft serve. In other words, it goes through the Cherry Burrell and incorporates air into it and the mix, and it's sent through a dasher, which is a barrel that has an auger on it with knife blades, and it freezes to the sidewall of that machine, and the auger pushes it through, and it comes out the front as a soft serve ice cream. So about 10 degrees or so of the ice cream itself. From there, we'll package it into half gallons as well as 3-gallon tubs, and then we'll set it into a blast freezer. That blast freezer our blast freezer runs about -28 with a wind chill factor of 20 below that because we got fans moving it. So we'll hard set that ice cream, and that's what they do in the industry. You got to send it through a hardening room or it'll be not able to keep the ice crystals from expanding and turning gritty on you. So the industry uses large conveyor belts to run through a hardening room to speed up the process. That way the wind gets around all the packaging all the way around. We set it into a hardening room here at Call Hall, and it just sits on a shelf. So we have to keep it in there for 24 hours. But in the industry, it's a lot quicker. Without the implementing of the blast freezer, your ice cream would be more like what you'd find a homemade ice cream or your grandma's ice cream, where it's amazing right away. It's as a soft serve ice cream, but when you set it in the freezer and you take it out the next day or even the next day after that, it gets grittier every time. Well, that's because the ice crystals had a chance to kind of break up and explode or form into different shapes, and that's why why you're perceiving that you're eating a little bit of sand with your ice cream.
There you have it, milk in all of its forms. For the Real Ag crew, I'm Kyle Bauer, and this has been Real Ag.
Production of Real Ag is made possible by
The Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by farmers.